Hello and welcome to the WIHS Journal Public Affairs program. I'm Jerry Williams. Well, Tom and Debbie Berrill are the founders of the Institute of Connecticut History. You might have heard them in our broadcast studio many times, and they're going to be our keynote speakers for this year's gala. They were in our broadcast studio just recently, and if you missed that conversation, you'll hear a portion of it happening now on the WIHS Journal, its news and public affairs. Now, today we're going to be talking about a tradition in Connecticut's Christian heritage that was called the Election Day Sermon. What was that and why was it important?
Well, thank you so much for having us, Jerry. But this is a really interesting topic. The people that came to Connecticut were scripturally oriented. They didn't celebrate designated public holidays like we do, Christmas, 4th of July, Labor Day. The Sunday Sabbath was their premier holiday or holy day. That was so very important to them. And that was centered on the most important feature in their culture, which was the Sunday sermon. The one exception to the rule of not doing designated public holidays was the Election Day, which took place every year on a weekday in early May. In the weeks leading up to what they called the Election Day, the towns elected their local officials, and they elected their representatives to the colonial legislature, and they elected their governor, which was unique because other colonies had their governors appointed by the King of England. So after that was completed, on a designated weekday, a public holiday was declared, and the newly elected legislature met in Hartford and elected from among themselves the governor's council, which we call our state senate today. Then, having done that, they would all sit together with a great solemnity at the State House with the governor present to hear the Election Day sermon. A minister from one of Connecticut's towns had been chosen to deliver the Election Day sermon. It was of the utmost importance because its intention was to remind the people and the government that they were part of a larger experiment and mission that was to bring God's kingdom to earth. As in the Lord's Prayer, thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is being done in heaven. They really believed that. As one historian put it, quote, these Election Day sermons were a social sacrament, signifying that for one more year, the people of Connecticut had kept the faith of Jesus Christ publicly and officially as a peculiar people of God, ordained in God's covenant as Israel had been. The sermons were an encouragement of the ongoing drama that charted the epic quest of this covenanted people, making their way in a new world filled with great faith potential to create a godly society based on Scripture. And that was so exciting to them because they knew and felt the Lord was doing something brand new with them, something that wasn't happening anywhere else. And it was an honor for a minister to be chosen to give this sermon, but it was also a fearful position of responsibility because on that occasion, that man had to step out of his role as pastor into the role of a prophet to the whole colony.
Wow.
He had to give a serious warning to the governor and his council and the assembly, reminding them that God would call them into account for their decisions as rulers and judges of the people. They were creators of civil law, but they were under a divine law. As prophets, these ministers would address the moral controversies of the day and the spiritual dangers they saw that Satan was brewing against the body politic and against the church in Connecticut. They encouraged the governor to stand for the rights of the people against the abuses of the British government. And when the time was right, they called for independence from the British government. After the sermon was given, the legislature was responsible to have it printed and published and posted in every town and church. And it would be read by virtually every citizen in Connecticut. It was a big deal.
Do you have, I'm sure you do, you're very detailed. Do you have any excerpts of those sermons to help us to get a better understanding?
Well, we have one, okay. And this is from Timothy Edwards, and it was delivered May 11th, 1732. And this is typical. And he had been pastor in East Windsor for nearly 40 years before he was selected. And he's known to history as Jonathan Edwards' father.
Oh.
But you'll see from this sermon, from this excerpt, that he was a spiritual force himself.
Wow.
And he said this,
God hath made it the duty of men to spend their appointed time in the world in his service and to his glory. And indeed it is most just and reasonable that it should be so. For God is a being of infinite dignity and excellency, and all men have received their life and being from him. And he sustains them day and night and keeps them every moment. He is the fountain of all the good they enjoy and hope for. Upon God, men have an absolute and entire dependence for all they have and for all they need, and that for both time and eternity. And to him they are under the highest obligations, and therefore by the very law of their creation, and by all the laws and rules of reason and equity, of gratitude and piety, they are bound to serve and glorify God. And indeed, that men should spend their whole time and improve all their opportunities and talents for that God who is a being of all possible perfection, whose creatures they are, and whose service and glory is the very end of their being, and of all that they have and are, is a duty so reasonable that there can be no just objection against it, nor any good excuse made for neglect. Deuteronomy 10:12 says, And now, Israel, what doth the Lord thy God require of thee? But to fear the Lord thy God, and to walk in his ways, and to love him, and to serve the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul.
So then he went on to mention several proper qualifications that are much to be desired in a Christian magistrate. And the first of that was knowledge. He said, if understanding be the eye of the soul, knowledge is the light of that eye, whereby it clearly sees its proper objects. Knowledge is a lamp to a ruler's feet, to show him the way, both his duty, and gives him boldness in it.
Number 2 is righteousness. This is a great and indeed an essential qualification of a ruler. For magistrates are appointed to be ministers of justice, and therein ministers of God to a people for good. They should therefore be men of great integrity. They should set themselves with all possible impartiality to administer justice to all that come for it, yea, to all to whom it is due.
The third one is a merciful, compassionate spirit. He said, a civil ruler is to be considered not only as one clothed with authority, acted and influenced by the spirit of a strictly just and righteous judge, girt with the sword of justice, as one resolved and ready to execute law without respect to persons, and so as a terror to evildoers, but also as one vested with power, furnished with ability and advantage, and qualified both with righteousness and with a disposition to right the injured, relieve the oppressed, do good to the poor and needy, and afford help to the afflicted.
Courage. This is an exceedingly needful for a ruler, that so his authority may not be trampled upon, and himself treated with contempt by proud and insolent men, and that he may not fear to draw the sword of justice against the most bold and daring transgressors.
The fifth one is gravity, or what we call seriousness. This is very becoming to the elders of the land, our public and political fathers. It is necessary to maintain their authority so that they may be duly regarded in their places, the want of which makes a ruler light and cheap in the esteem of others and exposes him to contempt. Gravity is so necessary that the government can't be well maintained without it.
Prudence. The work of a ruler, especially one of superior rank, is a great work, and in many cases is attended with great difficulty, requires an uncommon measure of wisdom to a right management of the concerns on it. And hence King Solomon did so earnestly seek it of God. 1 Kings says, Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people. And this was the one main thing that made him so great in the eyes of the people. Now prudence is an eminent branch of wisdom. It is very much of the practical part of it.
And fortitude. This is a virtue consisting of courage and patience. It is that whereby a man not only dares to engage in a just and honest cause, but also bears up under the difficulties that is attended without fainting, continuing with an invincible patience, strength, and firmness of mind to pursue the matter, waiting in the use of proper means for the desired end.
And once again, you just heard a portion of our conversation with Tom and Debbie Berrill, founders of the Institute of Connecticut History. And they are the keynote speakers for this year's gala, which takes place tomorrow at the AquaTurf. If you would like more information about what you heard today, call WIHS 860-346-1049, 860-346-1049. I'm Jerry Williams for the WIHS Journal, It's News and Public Affairs.